Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another League of Legends video. This time I wanted to do a topical commentary. This was actually, someone suggested this to me. I don't remember who you are. If you know who you are, feel free to leave a comment and I'll give you a big internet high five. But I want to talk about kind of ranked play, solo queue for someone who is just approaching level 30 or is picking up the game and has never played ranked before. And if you're kind of approaching it for the first time, you don't really know what to expect. Kind of my tips or tricks or expectations, however you want to phrase it. But kind of my thoughts or what I would... Basically the idea is if I could go back in time and talk to myself, a couple of months ago when I first was hitting level 30, about to hit ranked play, what would I say to myself at that time? So, yeah, I guess a couple of things. This is a ranked match I was playing mid lane with Gragas. And this is kind of related to some of my tips for solo queue success that I had before, but... The biggest thing that I would say is that it is very important. I would say one of the most important things you can do to prepare yourself for solo queue is to try and have a champion that you're very, very comfortable with. A champion that you have some mastery over, that you feel like, you don't have to think about their abilities. You don't have to kind of second guess yourself. You're not always thinking like, oh, shoot, I should have used that, or I should have done this. Or I forgot to use this ability, or whatever. You're not fumbling around with any of that kind of stuff. You're just kind of, you have a little bit of muscle memory, I don't know if that's the right word. More just that your mind is you're very comfortable and confident with this champion. That's a very important thing to have. And that also kind of goes into that you want to kind of have mastery over a certain role. I find that generally people have one lane or one role that they are best with. And you want to communicate that in chat. So that right when you get into champ select, it's usually best to set something like top pref, which means that you prefer top lane. Or you could say mid pref please. That's, just kind of something that you'll see is very common. So basically you're communicating to your teammates that, hey, my strongest and my favorite role is mid lane. Because if you think about it, like... it is in my best interest to have my teammates play the role that they feel strongest in. It is in my best interest to have my teammates play good. Because it is such a team game, you want to make sure that you have teammates who are doing well, that they're playing their best role. So it's in everyone's individual best interest to have people who are playing the role that they're best with. So if you have somebody who's like, well, I really enjoy playing AD carry and top lane. That's kind of, those are my two favorite lanes. But there's somebody else who says, hey, top lane is really the only lane that I'm really good with. Then I'll say, okay, well, hey, I'm happy to play AD carry. Why don't you take top lane? That's just kind of something that is useful and is very effective. So you want to go into solo queue kind of feeling like, hey, I've got a certain role or a certain lane or a certain couple of, maybe one champion or a couple of champions that I'm strong with, I'm confident with, I know I can do well. That's really, really helpful. One of the worst things that you can do that I never recommend is to try something new for the first time. You never really want to try out a new strategy or a new champion for the first time in solo queue. You want to save that for co-op versus AI or maybe even a normal game. Those are good places to be experimenting with something. Those are good places to try something new. But you want to leave and save ranked play for kind of your best. Especially when you're newer. The more experience you get, where you kind of have a little bit of a understanding, you've played a lot of different lanes, you've played a lot of different champions, then it's not so hard to pick up a new strategy. It's a little bit easier to kind of learn a new role. But early on, when you're just playing the game, there are a lot of little intricacies that you just don't have any knowledge and mastery over. That it's going to make it much harder for you. Because I feel like a lot of times when people are... Because the biggest thing you want to avoid is feeding. You do never want to be that guy who's just feeding like crazy, who's giving up a ton of kills to the enemy team. That's exactly who you don't want to be. That's where 99% of the time when people have an extremely negative experience in solo queue, it's because there's some sort of feeding going on, where somebody's having a bad game and they're going like 2-8. That's when people are going to get really mad and be really salty with one another. And if you want to avoid that and have a really positive experience, kind of avoid all these horror stories about how mean people are in solo queue, well, the best way to do that is to stick to what you know and what you're good at. Because one of the main things about having a certain champion or a certain lane that you are best with, is that you minimize that that element where you can get caught by surprise, and that's generally when people start feeding, is because they're in a lane matchup that they don't understand. Maybe they're playing against a champion that they have no idea how they work. There are champions in this game. I run a YouTube channel dedicated to, the main thing on my YouTube channel is talking about champions. Well, there are still champions in this game that I have no idea how their mechanics work. I have no idea, what their best combos are, what they're going to try to do to me. And when you go into that kind of a lane, you can really get caught off by surprise. You can be very much put in a bad spot, and before you know it, all of a sudden you're going to start feeding. And that's what you really want to avoid. And so the best way to avoid that is, like I said, to pick something that you are most confident and most comfortable with. Now, on the flip side of that, it is also important, and this may seem contradictory, but it is also important that you have at least a basic understanding of all of the lanes and all of the roles and all of the matchups. And maybe not all of the matchups, but just like a basic understanding of all of the champions and all, just like how to play support, how to play AD carry, how to play mid, how to play top, jungle. It's important to have at least a basic understanding of all of those roles, because you do also need to be flexible. So it's perfectly acceptable to go into a loading screen and say, hey, mid pref please. But then if somebody who has pick preference over you, if they say, hey, I'm going to go mid, well then you need to be flexible to go somewhere else, because I believe the official stance of Riot that they have actually officially endorsed in a forum post is to they actually officially endorse pick order over call order. So the basic idea there is that, in case you're not familiar, is that pick order is that the person with the highest first pick, the person who's doing all the bans, they have the highest elo, and therefore they should have preference about what lane they want to pick. And that's kind of my belief. I think that's the best way to run it, because the better players, if you've reached a higher elo, you kind of have a little bit more say about what lane you should play. And the idea there is that, well, it's random. Like, you're going to get matched up with people randomly. Unless you're like the very worst person in solo queue, you're going to at some point be first pick and at some point be last pick. But it's always fair, because you know that somebody who's higher than you is better than you. So just be aware of that. And if that comes up, it's important that you are flexible, that you can adapt to any situation. So, for example, one of the things that aggravates me more than anything is when somebody says, I can't play support. If you've seen some of my videos, I have a couple of videos about carrying on support. I 100% think that support is equally important to carrying a game as any of the other roles. Just because you aren't the one dealing damage doesn't mean that you cannot win a game. If you've ever seen a really good support Zyra, she can just take over a game with all of her crowd control, or maybe even Fiddlesticks. A well-timed ultimate plus fear can absolutely destroy an enemy team and get a perfect initiation. A good, well-played support can really impact a game. And I feel like a lot of times people have that in their mind that, well, they take my first point, which was to have a role that you're best with, but then they go too far and they think like, okay, well, that's all I'm ever going to play. So then you get into insta-locking, you get into people who are not willing to communicate with the team and not work together and try to form, a good cohesive team that's going to work well together to try to win the game. They're just going to say, hey, I want to play Fizz, I play Fizz mid every single game, sucks to be you. Deal with it, is kind of the basic idea there. And that's really not the idea you want to do. You want to be flexible. You want, if you're last pick, be prepared to play support. Maybe that's not your favorite role. I think a lot of people, it's not their favorite role. That's okay. I wish I could be on a crusade to try and encourage more people to play support and enjoy it for the wonderful role that it actually is, but I also recognize that that's just kind of the reality of the situation, that not a lot of people love support like I really enjoy it, and I think it's a really fun and powerful role to play. Not everybody agrees with me. That's fine. But it is important that you understand that, hey, you know what, sometimes I'm going to need to play support. There are times when you're going to need to play that role, and you need to have at least a basic understanding. Not saying that's going to be your best, that you're going to absolutely carry the game like I was talking about, but at least having a basic understanding of how that role works is I would say, required for solo queue. And just in my personal opinion, I would say that it is a requirement that you at least have a basic understanding of every role if you want to play solo queue. Now, a couple of other things is I feel like a lot of times people, they kind of like, so a lot of what I've been talking about is that, you know, solo queue is a little bit more formal. You want to have a little bit better team structure. But on the flip side, I also think, and my next point is going to be that you want to not take it quite so seriously. I've run into some people who, part of the reason why I think a lot of times people get mad and why solo queue is generally known to have this like trolling, you know, full of really angry people. You know, people are always getting mad at each other. I think one of the reasons for that is that it is a little bit more of a stressful environment because there is actually a meaningful penalty for losing. There's actually, you know, a consequence that people don't want to accept. Whereas in a normal game, you just say, all right, well, my top lane fed, and so I'm just going to get out of this game and go on to a new one, whatever. And it's not such a big deal. But in solo queue, there is a little bit of a consequence for losing. So people put more of a preference and priority on winning, and so they consequently take it very seriously. They think it's kind of a big deal. And in my mind, I feel like you should not be that way. I feel like you should approach solo queue as it's more of a formal game where you have a formal pick and ban phase and you've got, you know, the whole pick order thing. But on the flip side, like, I do not think it's healthy for people to kind of put so much weight and emphasis on the importance of solo queue that you've got to, you know, win and try hard and just be so crazy about the whole thing. I don't think that that's healthy either. You need to find some sort of middle ground where you still have fun. It's really important to have fun in solo queue. That's kind of the point of this whole point that I'm getting at. Because, you know what, solo queue is going to have its ups and downs. You're going to lose games, I guarantee you. You're going to have games where your teammates feed. You're probably going to have games where you feed. But you just have to accept it. You have to accept it for what it is, that's a reality of the situation. And if you don't take it quite so seriously, if you just look at it, hey, this is more of a formal match where I'm here to have fun, I'm here to have a good time, you know, have a little bit more of a formal game and certainly try hard, you know, try your best to win, but not to the point where you're kind of being a jerk about it. You know, that's definitely not what you want to be. So kind of have a healthy outlook on solo queue. You know, respect it for what it is, but don't put so much pressure on it that you think, oh my goodness, I have to absolutely try my hardest. Because I think that's one of the reasons why it gets a little bit toxic at times, is because people put so much emphasis on, you know, winning and trying hard, and this is something that I have to win at, and I need to get to gold or whatever. I just don't necessarily think that is healthy or smart or good. It doesn't have to be that way. So yeah, I've covered a couple of these basic things that you need to, you know, have a basic role that you're best with. Have a basic champion that you're best with. You know, but then also be at least competent with all of the roles is still a good choice. And then on top of that, you know, have a healthy mindset about it. Don't take it too seriously to the point where you never have any fun. But at the same time, you know, have a healthy respect that this is more of a formal match. The next thing that I would say is just to kind of be prepared for the community. You're going to have a negative experience. I guarantee you, you're going to have a negative experience. I played some ranked matches today. I'm actually on summer break, so I had quite a bit of time to play League of Legends today. And, you know, I had 2 games earlier today where people were raging mad at me specifically for feeding and ruining and throwing the game, and certainly it wasn't my best game in the world. I think I had a Zed game where I ended up going 4-9. That's not a very good score, but at the same time, like, it happens. You know, that's going to happen. I also had games, you know, I had a game that I just finished where I went like 20-2 on Ezreal. You know, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. I had a great game. You know, those 2 games were pretty much back to back. And so you need to just kind of be prepared that that's going to happen, that you're going to have games that you win, you're going to have games that you lose. That's just the reality and the nature of the situation. So kind of prepare yourself for that. Just kind of realize that this is it's an up and down game. You're going to have games that you win, you're going to have games that you lose. And if you come to terms with that, and you just accept the reality of the situation for what it is, I think it can definitely improve your experience. Because I think a lot of times people expect that, you know what, like, I feel like I'm a pretty good player. I think I'm better than these people around me in Bronze. The guy who taught me how to play League of Legends, he first introduced me to the game, he's in, like, Bronze 4 right now. And I think that's ridiculous. You know, I'm in Silver 3, and he's in Bronze 4. How did that happen? I don't really know. But it did. And there's not really anything that I can be done about that. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. But you need to kind of just realize that, you know, that's the way it is. That's kind of... You know, solo queue is not going to serve, you know, platinum up on a platter for you to just have. There's no easy, quick tip to get you there. There's no, you know, you have to earn it. You have to work for it. It's going to take time. I don't remember, I've read some forum posts about Riot when they kind of, the way that they've put in the matchmaking, the MMR legal system together. And they have like a target number of games that they expect players to play to reach their true elo. And it's like, it's much higher than I think most players would lead to believe. I want to say it's like, I don't even know. Maybe around, is 1,000 too high? Is that way too high? But I haven't even played 500 normal games. 1,000 seems a little high. I don't remember exactly what the number was. But the number exact is not important. But the basic idea that it's going to take time for you to get to your ideal place. It's going to take time for you to get to your ideal situation in solo queue. But that's going to happen. It's going to take time to get to where you need to be. And this is kind of related to some other things I've said, but I feel like ultimately, kind of, and I'm going to probably wrap this up, and we got about 3 minutes left in the game. We just had the big team fight where I had my awesome Gragas ult. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but that was the whole reason why I chose this video, for that Gragas ult. It was like perfect. I got like a 5-man Gragas ult and just knocked everybody out, and we just killed everybody. But the kind of the ultimate tip that I really want to kind of distill everything down into would be this, that I feel like the best way to view solo queue is that it is a good place for you to try and get better. I think it's going to be as simple as that. Normal play is a little bit more for fun. I would say normals is a great place to go and play League of Legends if you just want to have fun. There's a little bit more informal matches, just kind of people aren't trying quite so hard. People are playing a little more focused on getting just kills, because that's more fun than they are on objectives. Rank play is, like I said, is a little bit more formal, and that makes it a really, really good place for you to focus on getting better, on improving your gameplay. And if you go into every solo queue match and you try to focus on the mindset that is, I want to improve, that my only objective in this game is to try and get better, not necessarily to get a win, because like I said before, you can't always control your teammates, you can't always control everything, you're going to have games that you lose. But if your objective isn't so much, hey, I really have to win this game, but if your objective is more of, I just want to improve and get better, I think you're going to have a lot better experience. That's been one of the things I think that has very much improved my experience in rank play, because I've had some, you know, everybody has had some nasty experiences where some idiot in the chat is just going off, and it makes you never want to play ranked again. It really does. I know people who don't play ranked anymore because they've had some negative experience with somebody in the community. I know that has happened to some of you. But if you instead kind of change your mindset and view solo queue more as a place to improve, as a grounds for, you know, improving yourself, and it's not so much that like, oh, I want to make it to platinum because that's what rank I am. But if you more just kind of think, you know what, I want to be the best that I can be, and wherever that leaves me on the elo ladder, so be it. I think that's a better way and a more healthy attitude to have towards solo queue, a more healthy expectation to have towards solo queue. It's just to think, you know what can I do to improve? How can I, you know, take this time when I'm playing solo queue to try and improve? That's, I think, the best way to do it. And really, I think that if you keep that in mind above all else, I think everything else just kind of falls into place. Because, yeah, that's really all you can do. All you can control is yourself. And, you know, this really does change the way you view solo queue. Because even if you have a game where you have somebody who is feeding, you can still, I guarantee you, there were things in that game that you could have done differently, that you could have improved on. There are things that you could have changed. There are decisions you could have made. There are rewards you could have placed. There are all sorts of little things that you could have done differently to change the way you played the game to improve on. I guarantee you that that happened. And if you focus on that, if you instead focus on, you know what, these are the things that I can do to improve, I think you're going to have a much, much better time. As we're coming up on the end of this game, you see Garen is just tanking it out so hard, and I throw out one more barrel. Where's the barrel? Where's the barrel, Gragas? Boom! Double kill right there. I remember that. I actually remember this moment because it was kind of later at night when I was playing this game, and I literally like jumped up in my chair and like let out a little like yeah, like I like kind of hollered, and all of a sudden I was just embarrassed that I was like, I'm sitting in this chair in my house playing a video game and I'm like pumped out of my mind. Like, I just remember this moment. I thought it was kind of fun and that's the reason why I wanted to share this game with you guys. I thought it was pretty entertaining. But anyways, those are my thoughts on solo queue. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. For those of you who maybe are experienced veterans and needed kind of a little pick-me-up, or for those of you who are new to the game, I hope these tips are useful to you. And just remember, the biggest one is view solo queue as a place for you to improve. A more formal setting where you can get a more formal match, where there are certain expectations that can be upheld, but most importantly, view it as a place where you can improve. And I think that'll really improve your experience. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to hear more about this in the future, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.